Good morning and welcome to. Actually, what are we going to call it? We haven't really decided on what we're going to call it, but my name is Brian Pham and I'm here with my brother Sean Pham. We have decided to come up with a new podcast, and basically it's going to be Civics Unfiltered, I think. I don't know. I'll ask Sean.
Yeah, I think the best name that we've come up with so far is Civics Unfiltered, or Civility Unfiltered, or Civility Unchecked. I was still under construction with that one. But either way, hi, how you guys doing? We're gonna be talking, a lot about kind of current affairs, things going on in the country, and things that people should have some knowledge about. We're going to try to give you everything that you need to formulate your own opinions. We'll have some conversations that, maybe we have a stance one way or the other, but, the hopeful intention is that it's going to be unbiased and impartial. One thing I'd like to put on the record is this is the first episode, and I am hoping that, we will be in 100% agreement before we decide to publish anything. So what do you think?
I'm just going to publish it and not wait for any permissions. I mean, like the name of the show is Civics Unfiltered or Civility Unchecked. Whatever we decide with, maybe we'll listen to the audience for names. But anyway, we'll figure that out and we'll decide if we're going to publish it. Hopefully we will publish it, and this will be the first of many podcasts to come from us and eventually get input from the public or have other guests on it. That's my hope anyway. So, as I said before, I'm Brian. A little bit about myself. I'm 38, lived in Windsor Locks my whole life. I'm a conservative. I believe in a limited government, and I really stick to my values and the constitutional belief. But I'm also open to all ideas, and I'm very much open to facts. I will always listen to facts. So with that, I'll let Sean introduce himself, and we'll go from there.
So as Brian said before, my name is Sean. I too am from Windsor Locks. I've lived in Springfield, Massachusetts for roughly the past 10 years. I would consider myself more of a centrist, maybe leaning a little bit more towards the conservative side. There's a lot of things that I believe in, such as the limited government, but I also am big about, helping people to a degree. Brian said it to me before, hand up, not a handout, and, that kind of stuck with me a bit, and it makes sense. So yeah.
So I'm going to go and say that, first off, I have to say I'm surprised that Sean says he's a conservative, because up until recently, when he got me to start watching Ben Shapiro, I always thought he was a liberal, a left winger, extremely on the left actually, and kind of shocked me when he told me to listen to Ben Shapiro. I even said to my wife, "Holy shit, Sean wants me to listen to Ben Shapiro. This makes no sense." I did though. I always thought you were a liberal at heart until maybe 3 weeks ago, and you got me listening to Ben Shapiro. And at first, I gotta be honest, with Ben Shapiro, I was listening. I'm like, all right, this guy kind of has my same viewpoints. I understand. But what got me hooked was when Ben Shapiro, he was in California, one of his speeches, one of the many, and he said, "Facts don't care about your feelings." That was a wrap. After that, all I could do was listen to Ben Shapiro for about the next week and really understand his viewpoint, and then understand how he really tries to see it from both sides, which is something we're going to try here. But again, going back to Sean, I'm still surprised he's a conservative, knowing some of his beliefs.
So just to touch on that a little bit, my conservatism is a little masked by my ability to empathize with everybody. So for instance, you see a lot of this going on both sides, where you have one side calling the other snowflakes and the other calling, the other side extremists and alt right, whatever. You just have these people on both sides that are name calling, and they get into these conversations that just aren't really pure in fact. And when that starts happening, I think we start to lose the integrity of a conversation and a debate, I guess, if you will. So a lot of times what ends up happening, and it happens on both sides, but maybe Brian's only seen it one way because, you know, it's a discussion between him and I. But what ends up happening is I see somebody being belittled or picked on or bullied, if you will, and to me, I won't stand for it. I will interject at that point because I think you start to lose your credibility in an argument if you have to resort to that type of behavior. Um, so a lot of times, I found specifically on these forums that Brian and I are on, a lot of times what I would find is I would find a group of, let's say, conservatives, attacking, somebody on the left. And it was very mob mentality. And because of that, I just found it to be unacceptable. So what I would start to do is I would start to portray the left side. I would start to put out the facts as, devil's advocate, to really make people start to think. And I think because, I have a tendency to do that, it looks like I'm, more to the left. But I mean, at the core, like I said earlier, I believe myself to be a centrist, conservative leaning. And I believe this because, to a degree, I believe in capitalism, and I believe in, I work for what I earn, and, everybody has a chance to move ahead in this country, and, that we are the greatest country in the world, and, I always have this argument with people that, if it's so bad, leave. And, people want to throw it back in my face. Well, it's not so easy to leave, this, that, and the other. Well, it's easier to stay here and work and stop complaining than it is to, just keep complaining and not try to find a solution such as leaving. So, I mean, that's a little more on me, I guess.
So we both started Windsor Locks Forum, and we started that about, geez, I think it was like 2 years ago now. We started it on the belief of an open system, uncensored, but that could have dialogue that was respectable. Right? You could talk, you could disagree, you have different opinions between other people, but at the end of the day, you really needed to have respect and value the other person's opinions. Everyone has an opinion, whether it fits with yours or not, doesn't make it any less valuable in my mind. And I know Sean thinks the same way as I do in that regard. But, we started that, and I know me personally, I started really getting heavy into politics after that. And for about the last 2 years, I really engaged in some heated political debates with people. And it wasn't until recently that I started putting my foot down and saying, once somebody, to Sean's point about insults, once somebody starts with the insults, for me, the debate's over. I've won. Because at the end of the day, if you need to start with insulting me or insulting anybody, then you have nothing to stand on but your insults. So for me, it's goodbye, see you later, conversation's over, and I move on. I don't even entertain the insult mentality anymore, or the mob mentality. And, I find it funny, Sean said, he used the conservative mob mentality as an example, which I find funny because really right now we're seeing in the country, it's the left's mob mentality that's really trying to push this mob rule feeling. And we've seen it in the recent weeks with, the Supreme Court nomination and everything else going on. You see them really pushing their agenda. And if you don't buy it, you're not good enough. Or somehow you're a horrible person for not automatically believing it. So that's a little bit about us anyway on the background side of it. We're gonna keep going and move right along into.
So I just want to cut in real quick and say, you know, Brian was touching on the Windsor Locks Forum, and something that I would like to note is that when we first started that, we were both administrators on that site. And one thing that I have to say is, even though this is only a Facebook group, you know, and we're only administrators on this Facebook group, you know, we were still technically in positions of power, you know, in that regard, in regard to the group. So, you know, just something that I'd like to be sure to touch on right here, right now, is that, you know, when you are in a position of power, you have influence over people, you know, so to be the person to initiate a partisan conversation, you know, you're likely going to find support from the people that are following that group. And then you're even more likely to gain support and have people backing you on that philosophy or that idea, because again, you are in a position of power. With that being said, you know, I think it's very responsible, or it should be the responsibility of the administrators to try to separate themselves, you know, from how far they're willing to get involved into these conversations. Now, if they were to respond to a conversation that had come up, you know, by all means, go at it. But to start the conversation, you know, is a different thing altogether. You know, because you again are in a position of power, and you have the ability to bring in, you know, full support, and that's kind of where that whole, you know, my idea of this mob mentality came from. It's just because, you know, we know Brian is a conservative. He's an openly, you know, admitted conservative, you know, and he might be a strong conservative, not to say, you know, alt-right conservative, but he's a strong conservative. But again, going into something, starting a conversation with people's knowing of that, you know, you're already limiting the scope of the conversation. You know, the people on the left already know where you stand, for instance, and the people on the right already know that they're going to agree with you. So, you know, Brian and I had a conversation in the past about how, like, you know, we should, if you were a true anything, you know, and you firmly believed in your position, then the point should always be to win the hearts and minds of people. And that's the conversation that we had. You know, when I saw it happening on the forum, you know, people were ganging up with, you know, this one side's belief and attacking the other. I said, you know, that's counterproductive. You know, the point should be to win the hearts and minds, because, you know, at the end of the day, what are you doing? All you're doing is preaching to the people that you already have, you know, instead of trying to sway the minds of the others. So I just wanted to throw that in there.
So it is hard, and I firmly believe if you're in any type of position to help unite our country or unite our town, whatever position you may be in, little or big, you can probably do something. But if you're in a position, a bigger position, like you run a forum or you have a podcast, you should try to do whatever you can to unite. And I'm as guilty as anybody over the last couple of years. Haven't put maybe things out there that were more alt-right or more against, you know, the left side of our town or whatever. And I'll take that on the chin and say, hey, you know what, I've made mistakes. But at the same exact time, I will say that I've seen tremendous support out in the public. People will just come up and say, you know, I appreciate what you do. You keep it open, you keep it fair. And, you know, the first couple times that happened, I was thrown back. I was, what's this guy talking about? I don't do anything. I just run a stupid forum. It's lovely. And after about a year of it happening, I started realizing that I really do have a problem, like, or not a problem, I shouldn't call it a problem, but I have a position where what I do, what I say can affect people, or they're seeing it, whether they're commenting, whether they're calling in, whatever, they see it, and it can affect change. And I had to make a decision within myself. Do I want to affect change in a divide, or do I want to find a way to unite people? And to me, it was about uniting people over dividing people, because we've had enough division in this country, and it's far time that we heal the country and come together as a country rather than, blame. So to me, it's time we stop the blame. There's always going to be blame, plenty of blame on both sides to go around. But it's time to stop that and just figure out a way to work together and solve these problems. And, to that point, one of the greatest examples I can give is, I think it was yesterday or the day before, the Stephen Colbert show. The producer or one of the writers puts out a tweet in regards to the Kavanaugh hearings and says, he was confirmed, but I'm glad we ruined his life first. Now, to me, that's just disgusting. Why would a station like, I believe it's NBC they're on, allow such a comment to be made and not take immediate corrective action with that employee and fire them? Like, you're in a position, you're Stephen Colbert. Millions of people tune into your late show to listen to what you have to say. And instead of using your position to unite our country, you're using your position to divide it in the worst, most disgusting way, in my opinion. To say you're glad you ruined somebody's life with a false rape allegation, that's just downright disgusting. So, to Sean's point, we do have a need when we're in a position of power, and I don't use that term power in the way that, I rule you. I don't at any means. But a term like authority, okay? We have a position. We should utilize that position for the betterment of the country or town, not to always err on the negative. And sometimes I found it, especially in the last couple of years running the forum, very hard to find the line between, positive and negative, because one side's always going to think whatever you're putting out is negative. There's always going to be one side that, no, they hate it, and then the other side's going to love it. But what I found is a lot of people find accountability as a negative. I find accountability as a necessity. It's absolutely needed in my mind, and I think I would hope Sean's the same way. I don't know, but I guess we're going to find out here.
Yeah, I do find accountability to be 100% necessity as well. We should be holding people accountable for their actions and the things they say and the things that they do. Especially those in the highest powers. We should be holding everybody accountable. The people that are working for us, as in just your average person, they should be held accountable to higher standards. Because they are in those positions of power. They're in the positions to affect change. They are the ones that make things happen. They are the ones that make the decisions that affect our everyday lives. So they should be held to the highest standard, without a doubt. So before we break, I just want to make a couple points, not to blow up this forum, the forum that, Brian now administers with other people, because I had to remove myself from the forum for personal reasons. But something about that forum, the town of Windsor Locks is populated by roughly 13,000 people, and that forum, if I understand correctly, at this point has over 2,000 members.
Almost 3,000 members.
Almost 3,000 members. So that's a quarter of the town's population. If you look at voting, statistics, that pretty much falls in line with the amount of people that actually vote. So it's fair to say that it's a pretty influential forum. So either way, at this point we're pretty much going to wrap up the introductions. I think we're going to take a quick break, and then we will continue on with a conversation. I think the purpose is, and I just want to lay this out here and see if I understand correctly. The purpose is to have a conversation about the Kavanaugh hearing, and to kind of touch on that a little bit. We're not here to debate it. We are here to just simply converse about it.
All right, stay tuned for a message from our sponsors. I'm just kidding. We don't really have any sponsors yet. All right, welcome back to our podcast here. Quick little break. But we're back. We're going to talk maybe a little bit about the Kavanaugh situation, which has this whole country up in arms or celebrating, depending on where you stand right now. Me personally, I was pretty glad that he got confirmed, and I'm pretty glad that he got sworn in as quickly as he did. I think it's time we put this behind us and move on and let our Supreme Court work the way they were meant to work, according to our founding fathers. Sean's take might be a little different, but we'll find out.
So Brian, I'd just like to point out that he made the point that it was done rather quickly. So there is that to touch on. But Brian's excitement about the Supreme Court justice nomination and being confirmed, I don't share the same enthusiasm. Not necessarily because of any of the allegations that came up against him. That has very little bearing on my opinion. Had it not been for the allegations, there would be a lot of things that never came to light for me, which would make my stance a little bit different. So I guess that's kind of where I'm at.
So what came to light for you because or as an outcome of these allegations? What happened more that didn't happen before this allegation?
So I guess what came to light for me was you look at Supreme Court Justice Gorsuch, and you look at his coming up and being nominated and going through the motions with the Senate Judiciary Committee, and you see that it was a completely different game at that point. He was a Trump nomination, which, is the same to be said about Kavanaugh. They essentially rose up together. They attended the same law school. They both served as clerks to the same judge. They both received similar recommendations. But here the only difference was, actually several differences. So first, obviously the allegation. Again, we can say that the allegation in itself is not substantiated, and there's not enough credible evidence to suggest that he is guilty of this. Sure, I can get behind that. What I can't get behind is to say that as a result of the allegation, he presented himself to be impartial, and that's a big deal breaker for me. Unfortunately for Kavanaugh, which it's not going to matter to Kavanaugh, but either way, going back to it, going back to Gorsuch and his nomination and his confirmation, the document disclosures, the amount of information that was presented to the committee prior to the nomination hearing, prior to the questioning by the Senate Judiciary Committee was appropriate. They had ample amount of time. They had documents necessary. Yes, there were some committee confidential documents, but the amount of committee confidential documents has never been seen as it has been with the Kavanaugh case. This case, I think, in its entirety, has been completely unprecedented. From the amount of information disclosed to the Judiciary Committee, to how quickly it was pushed through, to the very slim vote, which we haven't had a slim margin of that magnitude for 137 years. So I guess ever. Possibly ever. I mean, yeah, it could be possibly right. Ever. Last I knew it was 137 years, but maybe either 137 way. Years is forever. As long as the country's been using the Judiciary Committee. So those are just a few things, and I guess we could touch a little bit more on them in this conversation.
But to what you're saying about the documentations is actually it's incorrect. Kavanaugh ended up giving up more documentation than any other. Actually, no, scratch that. Than all other Supreme Court justice nominations combined. So let me just rephrase that. He's given up. He gave to the Judicial Committee more documentation than every other nomination behind him in history. So to say he didn't give up enough documentation, well, no, he did. He gave up again more than all nominations behind him. But all right, let's go back to your other point. It was pushed through. Was it really pushed through? Because it took 30 days, and I think Neil Gorsuch was maybe like 3 weeks, right? So I don't think it was really that fast. And to the last point, you said, his temperament. Everybody talks about this judicial temperament. So let me ask you, how many of you have ever been accused of rape? So if you're accused of rape, let me ask you, do you know how to respond to that? Like if you were accused, let's just say I called you a rapist. Are you going to be able to respond to that? No, nobody except for somebody that's been accused of rape can even say how they would respond at that time. And I personally find his demeanor, yeah, I understand what everybody's saying. He needs judicial temperament. But this is a man that was just accused of rape. So, again, how would you act? I mean, I can understand his temper, or I won't call it a temper, but the attitude he had walking in there. Here's a guy that's had an exemplary record for his entire life. He's got support coming from everywhere, literally everywhere. Never had a problem. 5 FBI background checks behind him. They never found one single thing.
6.
Right? 6 now. Right. Now
7 now.
Okay, 7. So it's even better to my point. They've never found a single thing. Then you have this lady, and I'm not saying something didn't happen. So let's just get that out of the air right now. Something probably happened to her, right? But she doesn't know when, she doesn't know where, she doesn't know how, right? She named 4 witnesses. One was her best friend. Her best friend, in a sworn statement under penalty of perjury, said, I don't know Brett Kavanaugh, and I don't remember this party. The other 3 witnesses said the same thing under penalty of perjury. So imagine, put yourself in his shoes. You're walking into a courtroom now, or not a courtroom, but a Senate Judiciary Committee, to be heard and give sworn testimony under these allegations that this stuff's already come out. The best friend saying she doesn't know Brett, she doesn't know the party. The other 4 people already signed a sworn statement saying they don't know anything about it, yada, yada, yada. So imagine how you feel walking in there, knowing all these facts are already out there for everybody to see, and yet you still have to sit here and defend yourself against these ridiculous allegations there's not a shred of evidence that supports them. But you have to sit there and be grilled by these senators that are, they're out for your blood, and they've been out for your blood before you even were nominated. They said it. You have Chuck Schumer saying before President Trump said who the nomination was, he said, no matter who it is, we're going to bring them down. We're going to do everything we can to bring them down. And then afterwards, they started attacking again. We are going to bring him down. So here he is, testifying in front of the Senate because people are trying to bring him down. How would you feel? Honestly, think about that.
So just to touch on that a little bit, I mean, again, I can't help but to go back to the Gorsuch nomination, and if we're gonna say that it was like the left, the Democratic left, saying that they're gonna take him down, well, what made this any different? You're saying it was before the allegations, before the nominee hearing. What made it any different with Gorsuch? There was none of this interference. It was a civil nomination hearing. It went through appropriately. It was Trump nomination. So what was the difference here between, Gorsuch and Kavanaugh?
I think your main difference, and this is what people tend to forget, is that with Gorsuch, right? First off, it was right after Trump was elected. So a lot of things were going in his favor quickly as far as, he had control of the House, he had control of the Senate, whatever. But I think what people forget is with Gorsuch, the Dems had a hard time. They how could they justify saying no to Gorsuch? They just voted him unanimously to the federal appeals court in, I believe, 2006, and I'll check on that later, but I believe it was 2006. They voted him unanimously. They're the same senators that are sitting on the Senate Judiciary Committee today, minus maybe one or two, have been changed since then. But so the point being is, how are you going to today say no, Neil Gorsuch is horrible when 10 years ago at the time you had just voted him unanimously? So now flash forward, right? You got Kavanaugh, and then you have Feinstein, who's got this letter, we'll call it, and she's sitting on it. She sits on it until 48 hours before a vote because allegedly she wanted to keep the lady's name private. Now, my problem with that is, fine, you can sit on it. You could keep the lady's name private. I understand that. I respect the shit out of that. But here's what I can't respect, and I will never respect. So the Senate confirmation vote was supposed to be in the middle of September. I don't remember the exact date. However, right now, remember, Feinstein's sitting on this letter the whole time, right? September 6th, behind closed doors, they have a quote-unquote interview with Gorsuch. All the Senate Judiciary members have a closed-door meeting with him, right? Never in that meeting did Feinstein or one other Democrat ever even ask, have you ever been accused of sexual harassment? Have you ever been accused of any sexual misconduct ever? Period. Now, as a real human, if I'm sitting on a letter that's accusing someone of sexual assault and I'm interviewing you, I may not say the name. I'm not going to say the name out of privacy respect, right? But I'm damn sure going to ask, have you ever been accused of XYZ? I'm not just going to sit there and not ask that. What the hell kind of sense does that make?
So just on that, he at that point he hadn't been accused of anything.
No, he had been accused. She had the letter.
So Feinstein had the letter,
right.
But Kavanaugh, to his knowledge, had not been accused of anything.
Right. Well, what do you want, Kavanaugh to ask himself if he's been accused of something?
Well,
no,
you're saying that she should have asked him if he's been accused, but why would he think that he's ever been accused of something?
Because she could still just say, have you ever had any allegations of sexual misconduct?
Which
that's
at
just
that
a question.
point he hadn't.
Which, fine, he would say no. But as a reasonable person, digging into someone's background and doing a confirmation, you would at least ask the question if you're sitting on this intelligence. Why wouldn't you?
So, I can't really speak to what's going on in Feinstein's head, at that point. I think the question is kind of, it's already set up for failure. She knew having the letter that he hadn't been accused of anything at that point. So, of course, his answer is going to be no. So, I mean, it's almost not worth asking that question. Maybe if it was phrased differently, if maybe it had come out like, hey, I think there's a discussion to be had and this is the discussion, then sure, then let him talk about it there with knowledge of what's going on. But to ask him a question that he's clearly going to answer no, because at that point the answer was no, then it just doesn't make sense to me. But going back to it real quick, just a couple things on the people that, testified to say that, it never happened, the allegation, which I don't want to get stuck on the allegation too much, but going back to the allegation, you have Mark Judge, who was the only person in the room who refused to testify.
No,
Mark
testify.
Judge did not testify. And then aside from that, you have Kaiser, who is one of the people who said that, they redacted their statement to then come back out and say, no, I have said the whole time that Ford's testimony I fully believe.
Right. She believes it, but she stated twice, she stated she does not know Kavanaugh and does not know the party. And then to go even further than that, she has now come forward to say, hey, these people from the opposition side, I don't know who these people are, but whatever, have called me and said they will pay me to change my testimony. Now, if her testimony was in favor, they wouldn't obviously want to pay her. And then to your point about Mark Judge,
Yeah,
Mike, right?
It's Mark Judge.
Mark Judge. My
Mark Judge,
apologies,
the
Mark,
only
if you're
witness in the
listening.
room who refused to testify
Right,
to
but
the
hold
Senate
on.
Judiciary Committee.
No. He refused to testify, but let's look at some facts, right? Fact. He's provided, through his attorneys, a letter, a sworn affidavit stating that he has no recollection of this event. He was never in any such position. That was once. Then after Kavanaugh and Dr. Ford testified, he provided another statement. Again, refuting the same facts. Now, why didn't Mark Judge testify? Now, to get to there, we have to dig into his past, right? This is a guy that is known to have alcoholism and drug issues. He has almost OD'd 3 times in his life from drugs. He almost died about 2 years ago, I believe, from leukemia, which I'm glad to hear, he's doing better with the leukemia and cancer. But this is a man who has severe addiction issues, right? So, and I've always said addiction issues also stem from mental illness. That's my belief anyway. But you're going to ask this man, or this man's going to come in front of a Senate committee and be expected not to stress out to the point of breakdown and relapse? Come on. Give the guy a break. We got 3 other witnesses that have provided sworn statements, again under penalty of perjury, denying this accusation. What more could you possibly want? The doctor herself can't remember where exactly it was, what month it was, what day it was, or how she got there, or how she got home. What else would you like? Please.
So again, I've said it since the beginning, the rape allegation in and of itself, I said it right at the beginning of this. It cannot be substantiated on fact. You cannot sit here and burn Kavanaugh at the stake for being guilty of, the allegations that Ford has made.
Right.
So we put
him?
that. So you put that out there. Okay, you understand that, in the one hand, I'm saying, yes, we cannot substantiate these claims that Ford has made. And I can agree with that to a certain point. Things I can't agree with is that, you do have people, you have classmates, you have roommates who came out and who have said, that Kavanaugh has grossly misrepresented the truth. That he has...
he drank.
He has blatantly lied. Sure, he drank,
call
but call it what it is.
Right.
He drank,
Okay.
and then
so
okay.
raise your hand if you didn't drink a lot in college.
That's not the point. The point is, and you said this in our introduction, that people in a position of power should be held to a higher standard.
And I agree with that.
You agree with that, okay? So if we have somebody who is under oath,
Well,
lying,
okay, right.
lying under oath, lying, then there should be something to say about that and his ability to serve in the capacity that he will be in.
Okay. What would you like him to do? Would you like him to go into the Senate committee and be like, dude, I used to do keg stands, I shotgun beers, I was a drinker and a partier and a rock star. How would that play out? And they'd be like, then I could just see the media now. Kavanaugh is a lush.
I guess
Kavanaugh
it's easy.
did keg stands.
It's easy to over dramatize, the drinking aspect, to say, I used to be, keg stand Ken, and I used to sit there and I was a lush. I used to get wasted, and I'd be waking up in a puddle of my own vomit every morning. It's easy to over dramatize it like that, but at the same time, it could have just been, yes, I used to be a college student just like everybody else. Yes, I used to drink to excess. Yes, I attended, a lot of parties. You didn't have to over glorify the drinking.
And he didn't. He said to his fairness, he was asked so many freaking times, it was disgusting. Did you drink? Yeah, I did drink. I liked beer. And at the time, the legal drinking age in Maryland was 18. I drank. We all did. We were all in high school. We all drank. It was common. What? Again, back to what I said. What do you want him to do? Say, I'm Frank the Tank, and I went streaking through the quad? Come on. Get real. If he had said that, they would have torn him at the stake right then and there. But then, let's go away from beer drinking. Whatever. He drank. You drink. I drink. We all drink in excess. And he said it. He drank in excess sometimes. But had he given them too much, as well as I do, they would have torn away. But getting away from the beer issue, all right, the allegations based on the facts, What would you do? Yes, he's supposed to be held to a higher standard because he's going to be one of our Supreme Court justices. So of course he should be held to a higher standard, and I absolutely agree with that. He's going to be in the highest court of the land. But would you allow, for all intents and purposes, a well-deserving man, right, before these allegations, to be denied the privilege of serving our country at this level because of an allegation that can't even be substantiated? Would you allow that?
So, based solely on the allegation that can't be substantiated?
Right.
No, I would
Okay.
not allow that.
So
But
then-
I would allow, based on his temperament and the way that he responded and the way that he reacted, to weigh into my consideration as to whether or not he should be denied the opportunity.
And that's
I mean, at this point, we all know that it's irrelevant. He was confirmed, and even 3 weeks ago, I said, it doesn't matter which way this plays out. He's going to be confirmed. There's no doubt about it in my mind.
And
I
that's
said
your
this to
opinion.
all of my coworkers. My opinion turned out to be fact.
Well, no, the fact is he's confirmed, but your opinion on his temperament, and I go back to, can you put yourself in his shoes? Absolutely not. There's no way that you can firmly say, I understand, and this is how I would have acted in the position. There's no way.
No, you're right. I can't, but I also could never put myself in the shoes of a Supreme Court justice. Neither could you. Neither could 99% of the population. More than 99%
But
of the population.
just say you were interviewing for a job at McDonald's, and the McDonald's manager said, you know what, there's an allegation that you raped somebody. How would you respond? I don't care if it's a Supreme Court justice or a janitor. Anybody that's accused of such a
You know what I would do?
heinous act.
I would say, hey, guess what? I didn't rape anybody. Oh, you want to know what else I would do? When asked if it could be investigated, I would immediately say yes, exonerate my name.
And,
Please.
To
I
his
would
credit,
absolutely.
he did say that. Wait,
no,
he did say that.
No,
Yes,
he did not.
absolutely did.
I
He said-
listened to the
He
hearing.
has no. I watched the whole entire day. Right?
Did you listen to him being interviewed by Kamala Harris?
Yes. And Kamala Harris wanted to sit up there and say, "Well, why don't
yes
you call-"
or
no,
no?
no, no, no. Yes, and that was after Senator Grassley already has stated, and this is a fact. Now you have to remember, there's laws, there's ways government does things. Just even wins the lies. We have our the words eluded me now, but whatever. We have ways that we're going to do things, and in this case, Judge Kavanaugh cannot say, I want an FBI investigation right now. No, he can only follow the wishes of the majority opinion of the Senate Judiciary Committee at that time. So if it's their wish to conduct an FBI investigation, so be it. If it's not their wish, so be it. And these Democrats, like Kamala Harris, or the senator from Hawaii who said men should just shut up, or Mr. Booker, Spartacus, they know factually there's no way he can absolutely affirm that, yeah, I want an FBI investigation. All he can say is, and he did say it numerous times, I watched the whole day or listened to it on the radio when I was driving. He said it, I will do whatever the Judiciary Committee requests. I am for whatever they want. That meant an FBI investigation, whatever. Let me ask you. All right.
What's the harm in yes or no? What's the harm in yes or no?
How did he not say yes? I will do whatever the committee wants.
Judiciary Committee wants.
Right.
That is not a yes or no answer. What is the harm in yes or no?
He had already committed to 6 FBI backgrounds.
6 investigations that did not include the allegation that was made by Ford. So again,
Okay, so then,
what
all right,
is the
fast
harm
forward.
in
All
yes
right.
or no?
So now let's look at it in retrospect now, or fast forward rather. He now has had an FBI investigation on this allegation,
In
and
limited
yet again,
scope,
and what?
yep.
Well, no,
In limited
hold on.
scope,
In,
yep.
supposedly in limited
It's
scope, but
coming
listen,
out now
at the end of the day,
exactly what was done.
right?
But go
But
ahead.
at the end of the day, again, he's had an FBI investigation, and surprise, surprise, the left is not happy. There's something wrong with it. Nancy Pelosi, oh, I'm gonna request an FOI. Well, first off, Pelosi, good luck with an FOI on Congress who isn't, held to the FOI standards. I'm going to request that it be unsealed because it's wrong that it's sealed. Okay, well, great for you, Pelosi, but maybe you should go ask your own side why they sealed it. After all, it was Senator Feinstein that sealed the FBI investigation. So go ahead, go ask your party and get back to us. This is the ridiculousness that is the left division. Like, just stop. It's your own party that asked for it to be sealed.
This is the ridiculousness of all politics.
Okay.
Like, let's be honest. Okay, again, going back to all the document dump that took place 24 hours before the Judiciary Committee hearing, 42,000 documents that were said to be reviewed by the GOP. Come on, like, let's be serious. 7,000 documents an hour. You believe that? You believe they got through 7,000 documents an hour?
No.
Yeah. Oh, but Chuck Grassley surely said it. You
Hey,
know,
you know what? I don't
during
know.
the committee hearing,
Listen.
that they went through 7,000 documents.
At the end of the day, right, there's teams upon teams behind each of these senators reviewing everything.
Superhuman.
How can you say superhuman? Like, if you have, let's just say hypothetically, each senator has 20 people under him, right? And they usually have more than that, to my understanding anyway. Let's say they each have 20 people under them.
Let's
So
do some math
7,000.
together. Let's do some math.
So
together.
do the math. 7,000 divided by, you
20.
said 7,000. 7,000.
Per hour.
So, right, 7,000 divided by 20. What is that?
That gives us 350
So
pages
you're
an
gonna sit
hour.
here. You're gonna sit here, bold face, and tell me that a well-educated, highly achieving academic cannot review 360 pages in an hour.
Yeah. Yes, I am. I'm
Bullshit.
sorry, but as a strict construist, yes. You're not going to go through 350. You're telling me you could read more than a page in a critical manner in more than a minute? In less than a minute. I'm sorry. In less
I'll
than
be
a
the
minute.
first to say I'm not a highly achieving academic, so no, I'm not going to tell you that. But what I will say is, let's say, all right, maybe we just had 20 for one senator, right? Let's just say, just maybe
Sure,
happy for 1 second,
hypothetically,
right?
sure.
Hypothetically.
Let's go hypothetically.
All right, so let's go hypothetically. All right, let's just say we had 20 for one senator. Now, I forget the exact count, but I believe there's 9 senators and 8 senators, right? So 9 on the right, 8 on the left, whatever it is, whatever makes
Sure,
up.
sure,
So let's just
sure,
say
the
there's 5.
Judiciary
Let's just
Committee,
say there's
yep.
5.
Split
and
that
each
between
one
5?
Has, hold on, no. Yeah, so each one has 20 people under them, right?
Yep.
Now you're at 1,000, right?
So
I'm sorry.
You're at 100.
100.
You're at 100 people.
100 divided by 7,000 an hour.
But I'm sorry, every senator is to what was the term that they kept using? Review and consent. Was that what
Advice
it
and
was?
consent.
Advise and
Right,
consent.
but if their
under
associates are
their
giving
own
them-
opinion,
Right,
not
but-
under the opinion of their fellow senators.
But it's not necessarily
You're not
under,
using
listen,
your other
that's where you're getting it
senators.
wrong. It's not under the opinion of the senator per se. It's under the opinion of, you have their associates, so to call them, bringing them back cliff notes, if you will, of everything they're finding. They're scouring these pages and saying, hey, this is wrong or this is right.
So you're just adding time as well by saying that Cliff Notes had to have existed and been added to this, So these guys, not only did they review the 7,000 documents per hour, but they also made Cliff Notes for their senators to present.
If you're reviewing something, I mean, I went to college. If you're reviewing, researching a book, are you not writing down notes as you go? Or
Yeah,
highlighting?
of course
Okay,
I am.
so
But what I'm
that's
trying to
what
say is
talking
that
about.
that takes time.
How does it take time? You take a freaking highlighter and you highlight a passage in a note. Come on. Really?
Do you highlight it? Or do you transcribe
Highlight
it? What do you do? I
Highlight
mean, do you
it.
paraphrase it? Like,
Listen, at the
how
end
do
of the
you
day,
know what's going
at the end
on?
of the day, you're gonna highlight it. You're gonna say, all right, this is interesting to me. I'm gonna make note of it by highlighting it. At least that's how I do it because I believe in efficiency. I don't know about you, although I know you do work for the government, so I'm gonna guess you don't believe in efficiency. But
Listen.
at the end of the day, efficiency is key. So I'm gonna highlight it, right? And then review everything else. And then after I'm done reviewing, I'm gonna go back to what I highlighted, determine if it's credible, determine what I gotta determine, whatever my job is at this time. And then if it is credible or if it's worth, further investigation, I'm gonna write it down and then I'm gonna bring it to the senator's attention. That's just me. That's how I would do it.
Right, even in the way that you would do it, that's a process. I hate to
Everything's
say
a
it,
process.
It's a process.
And listen, at the end of the day, I'm not saying I don't agree that 7,000 pages isn't a ridiculous shit ton to freaking investigate. I mean, it sounds absurd, and I'm of course making up a crazy hypothetical that in reality probably isn't really close to reality. But it's not an impossible hypothetical either. It could happen. You have to remember there's huge teams that work behind each of these senators. It's not just them by themselves.
That's
so
not to be dismissed.
right.
I
So
agree with
don't
that.
just assume, okay, well, one senator is reading 7,000 pages by himself in an hour.
Not at all.
That's,
I mean, it'd be
just
pretty
ignorant.
Yeah,
So,
ignorant to suggest that was the
but
case.
going forward, all right, the Kavanaugh dump, yeah, okay, maybe they shouldn't dump 42,000 pages on anybody's lap at once. But you're only further cementing my point that he did give up more paperwork than any other Supreme Court justice.
And you said that before about, the amount of paperwork that he had given up. Okay, it's one thing, for Kavanaugh to give up whatever he gave up to be reviewed, but it's another thing, the executive office has an obligation to also give up information.
Okay, so let's go to that.
So wait. So let me just finish real quick. In all of the documents that were given up, can you tell me the percentage that was redacted, whited out, considered committee confidential?
I can't tell you that. Can you tell me?
I'm pretty sure it was like 93% of the documents.
First off, that's such bullshit. They said that on the media, so we're gonna go with fake news on that one.
Okay,
I'm sure we can
you
go
have
political
you also
that,
don't have
we
the
don't
stat.
have an exact
I don't
number.
have
I'm
the
sure
stat,
I can look it
so-
up. If you really want me to, I'm sure I can find it.
All right, we'll both.
I'm gonna go ahead
we'll
and
both
safely
try to
assume it
see.
was not 90% at this time.
Well, let's keep talking though.
But listen, as far as the executive branch paperwork goes, sometimes I don't want to know. I believe in accountability, but sometimes I don't want to know what happens at the executive branch level, right? There's national security protocols for a reason.
That, sure. I
Listen,
get that.
okay? So whatever you got to do to stop terrorism, whatever you got to do to protect this nation at the end of the night so that all its citizens might go to sleep peacefully, do you. If it's a drone strike, whatever it might be, and I'm not advocating that people die, but listen, let's not pretend for a second there's not bad guys out there, and there's some bad shit we have to do to protect our country. The CIA, come on, they're a clandestine operation by name. So, go ahead.
Are you saying that we're so much worse today than we've ever been? That an unprecedented amount of information was held to be confidential?
I'm going to say that he was working for the executive branch, and I truly believe that most of it was probably national security. So, due to national security, and I don't blame him for withholding it. Listen, you have at the end of the day, he was on the court for 12 years, and he wrote over, 400 opinions?
I think it was like 360.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you can't get a good basis for who the guy will be as a judge, they get it together. The guy has had more female clerks, right? That's the name of them? Clerks or associates, whatever. Clerk firm after law school than any other judge in history, right? I mean, what more do you need to see from the guy? You have to see every in and out that happened with him with the Bush administration. I mean, really, you're talking about a time where we went to war.
So do you find this to be a bipartisan statement? That this is clearly an attack from the Democratic left.
I absolutely do.
You find that to be a bipartisan statement?
I'm sorry,
be a bipartisan statement.
I do not find that to be bipartisan.
Okay,
of course,
so thank you.
Dude, you think?
Do you find the statement? What goes around comes around is
Karma?
pretty good thing for a U.S. Supreme Court justice to say, while on the review committee.
Taken out of context, yes.
Taken out of context. This is not taken out of context. This is his statement. This is his response. This is his, that he was part of a conspiracy from the left side. This is payback from the Clinton administration. These are not bipartisan statements. And, something that I think is worth looking at right now is Supreme Court justice oath that they're supposed to take.
I understand the oath. Hold on.
So in the oath, they talk about how they're supposed to be impartially deciding.
Right, let's go with impartiality, right? Here he is testifying in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee, again, after a rape allegation.
Yep, you're right.
Of course, he is absolutely 100% as a judge, and especially a Supreme Court judge or nominee at the time, supposed to remain impartial. But,
held to a higher standard.
Right,
We've agreed on that, right?
Fine. Whatever, higher standard, impartial, whatever, both. He's supposed to be both, right?
Impartial and at a higher standard.
But here's the man. At the end of the day, he's a human. He's a man, right? Sorry if that offends anyone, by the way. But at the end of the day, that's what he is. He is human, right? And before, again, I go back to before he was even nominated by President Trump, the left, specifically Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, Senator Feinstein, all these, like Elizabeth Warren, who's from your state, by the way. Thank you for that.
Yeah, you're
say,
welcome. So is Charlie Baker, so you're welcome for that,
yeah.
actually.
But they all say, we will do everything in our power to stop any nomination put forward by the president. So I understand, I get that he's supposed to remain impartial. But how the hell are you supposed to remain as a human impartial when it's clearly the left's agenda to derail you at any cost, no matter what? Before they even knew your name, they were going to derail you. How? No, tell me, seriously. Come in a human position. Don't forget that he's Brett Kavanaugh. Forget anything. Just put yourself out as a human, right? You were nominated to this court, and before your name was even brought up, these people are already like, hey, we're gonna derail you at all costs.
I think it's unreasonable for you to tell me to think about it from a human perspective, because
You're not human?
Yes, I am human,
Okay.
but I'm average human. Let me tell you, okay? I am just your simple average American, working for a living.
But you're still human.
I'm still human.
Okay, so
but
we've
the
determined
difference
that
is
fact.
going through, the education that you wanted to point out that I went through, to get to where I am. My background is in criminal justice.
As is mine.
Yeah, as is yours.
Right.
And going through my college experience and learning what I learned about the criminal justice system, I'm sorry, but I look at a U.S. Supreme Court justice as a superhero. They're above human, like, in my opinion. They have like the strongest power in this land. I would say they're even more influential, and we talked about this off record, and maybe you want to admit it now or not, but I believe that they're more powerful than the president. So their influence is going to affect all Americans.
I agree, but I go back, and I was in a law enforcement capacity twice in my lifetime, and I go back to what we're trained on, or what we come, especially being in that capacity or that role, to understand that behind the badge, behind the robe, behind whatever, at the end of the day, these people are human. I don't care who they are. I don't care if it's Michael Jordan. I don't care if it's the Pope. I don't care if it's Queen Elizabeth. At the end of the day, you are still human. And psychology will tell you, like, it doesn't matter. You're still human. So how are you going to react? How are you going to be?
I'm sorry, but again, psychologically, a judge should be, predisposed to having a certain temperament.
So you're saying that a judge should have powers above and beyond what a human brain or human psychology can handle. That's your argument. That's literally
this is essentially what got them there. Yes.
No,
their impartiality, their ability,
their smarts get them there.
Their academics, their smarts,
Right,
their
not
mental
superhuman.
capacity, their mental capacity to be able to maintain a level of temperament that is impartial, unbiased, and allowed to, portray to everyone on both sides this impartiality and fairness. Yes, that's what got them there. So yes, you can sit here and you can say, at the end of the day, he's only a human. But guess what? I'm also a human. But if I were to get up on that stand and I were to say, you know what? Yes, I did do it. I am guilty of these allegations. But guess what? I still have this incredible record, of my demonstrated impartiality and my fairness. And you can see this long-standing track record. Does that make it okay at that point? Because I'm human, I made a mistake. Am I okay now? Is it okay to forget about the other things? Is it all right to do that?
You know what? I think we've blown this topic.
I do just want to say one other thing.
wanted.
I do want to say, actually two other things. Okay. First of all, I want to say, if we truly believe that Judge Kavanaugh is impartial and that, he's fit to be a U.S. Supreme Court justice, explain to me why the American Bar Association has now reopened his standing As of Friday,
okay.
they reopened
So you
his
want-
evaluation.
No. All right, stop right there. So you want to go to the ABA? The ABA, there's been so many biases exposed through this whole process. The ABA is one of them. They've never picked a political side in their history. Same with the ACLU, and now all of a sudden, here they come out. They're picking a political side.
They
whether
gave
you like
him
it or not.
their full
Listen,
support.
no,
The ABA gave him their
But
full
then they pulled it.
support. They pulled it as a result of his temperament.
no, they pulled it as
in
a result.
hearing.
No, they did not. They pulled it as a result of a limited investigation. They called for a full investigation through the FBI. So that's fine. I can at least get behind the ABA's reason. What I can't get behind is you have people like Whoopi Goldberg or Joy Behar out there who, their bias is so ridiculous. Like,
Yeah,
let's just go.
yes,
Let's just.
I
no,
agree,
Let's just,
I agree.
Right, but their ACLU, even the ABA, has been influenced. They've never come out politically for any reason or another, and gone against. Here's a guy they were giving the highest rating to forever. They never had a problem with him, and all of a sudden they have a problem. So fine, you want to say it's temperament, whatever. But you have people like the ACLU who's picking a side. That's ridiculous. They've never done that in the history. So there's a clear bias. Joy Behar, Whoopi Goldberg. When Frank,
Again, two people that I would not give any credit to
But
in these
when
conversations.
Al Franken was accused of, illegally groping the woman on the plane. Now, when I say accused, that's ridiculous because there's pictures. Whoopi Goldberg sitting there saying, "Well, it's not rape. Oh, okay, Whoopi. Well, what the hell is it then? Like, it wasn't right. Surely what he did, it wasn't right. And fine, we want to talk about holding people to a higher standard. That's fine. So why is it and again, this can mount this frustration too, in my opinion. But why is it there's senators sitting on the Judiciary Committee? You have one that hired nothing but a Chinese spy for years, right? She factually knows that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, you have another one that admitted to sexually assaulting the girl when he was a teenager. He admitted it. Spartacus. Imagine that. Spartacus. He admitted to sexually assaulting a girl when he was a teenager. Okay? And then you have another one that's a wife beater. Now I'm missing there's a fourth one that did something stupid, but it doesn't come up to my level of even bringing it up today. But here's 3 senators who have had major problems. One employs Chinese spies, one's committed sexual misconduct, and one beats his wife. So why are they held to a lower standard? And yes, I get that he's going to the Supreme Court, and he is, in some terms, as we discussed off record, more powerful than the president. But should our senators not be held to the same standard? We have senators who have admitted to having a slush fund to cover up sexual harassment allegations with our tax dollars, by the way. So
they should be held to the same standard.
Why should we not?
No, you're absolutely right. They should be held to the same standard.
So then
but maybe if there was a timely process for this, we could have selected, more appropriate people to be on the Senate Judiciary Committee.
No,
so
we don't get to select that. They get appointed.
So, well, all right. So they're appointed. I mean, who's responsible for that?
Well, who would be? So we'll go on to the next topic. I'd like to know, and maybe somebody out there can answer for us, who would be responsible for launching an investigation into these? I'm gonna call them corrupt. Oh, I know who the 4th senator was. It was our own Dick Blumenthal, Mr. I was in Nam. Really, Dick? How do you get that wrong? Please, Dick, I beg you to do an interview with me, because I would really love to know how you can explain accidentally being in Vietnam. I'd love to know that. Call anytime. But moving on, I would love to know how you get an investigation done on these senators, these congresswomen, like Maxine Waters. Okay, she was just accused, I was just reading right now, of bad campaign fundraising practices. This is not a surprise. This is the same lady that from the day before even Trump was sworn in, calling for his impeachment. This is the same lady that's told people time and time again, if you see these people in the streets, if you see these people at restaurants, you harass them, you yell at them, you make them uncomfortable. What the hell kind of representative are you? What message does that send to our kids, our communities, our people. That needs to stop.
So I just don't want to steer too far off topic, because the topic at hand is Kavanaugh, and the light is on Kavanaugh. So, you're right. There are corrupt politicians everywhere. I don't know who does the appointing of the Judiciary Committee, but maybe there's some things that need to be considered. And I'm sure as a result of this Kavanaugh hearing, some things are going to change. There's almost little doubt in my mind about that. But, just to touch on one final piece, you have Republican Supreme Court Justice John Paul Stevens, who also is now coming out at this point. Remember, Republican, conservative Justice John Paul Stevens, I think he's retired at this point, coming out saying that he also does not find Kavanaugh to be fit to sit on the U.S. Supreme Court.
He is, but is that a surprise? I mean, here's a justice that now does interviews, or I shouldn't even call them interviews. He's I don't know what they call it in the fake news, a media correspondent or like a guest,
This
like
term
a guest.
fake news is so funny.
Well, I mean,
it's hilarious.
when I
Like,
get debunked,
you can find it on both sides.
right, you
So,
can
like,
absolutely. Hey, I don't disagree that you
can
can't
find it on
it.
both sides.
And I don't disagree that you can't find it, but at the end of the day, when you can debunk over 50% of what's said on any one news channel like CNN or MSNBC or even Fox, it doesn't really matter. I don't care what the name is, but if you can debunk over 50% of what they're saying, then that's worse than a meteorologist rating. So, I mean, get it together. So, anyway, Justice Stevens, let's talk about him. Here's a guy that does regular sit-downs or guest appearances on CNN or MSNBC. So, that doesn't really surprise me. That's like the former CIA director who's like all up in arms. Oh, he took away my security clearance. This is wrong. Blah, blah, blah. It's wrong. Please explain to me how that's wrong. You're not. A, you're no longer employed by the federal government. B, you are not the CIA director. C, you have come out and openly on television spoken against our president, who would be, for all intents and purposes, your boss. So, why is it wrong that your security clearance was revoked? If anything, it should have been revoked the minute you left the CIA. You no longer work for the CIA. I guess I understand there's a long-standing tradition that after a high-level, we'll call them asset or employee leaves an organization such as the CIA or the FBI or whatever it might be, they retain their security clearance. But there's no policy that we have that says you have to keep it. So, whatever. That's my point is on the justice Stevens.
So we just dismiss his pass, though. I mean, we can
go
ahead and dismiss all
he
his
has long
conservative
He
Republican
has a long
pass.
standard pass of conservative. But at the end of the day,
Who's
a lot
the
of
guy
people.
that I just watched? Scott Bannon. I think it's Scott Bannon. Yeah, that sounds right. Scott Bannon is also one of these guys that goes on these left-wing media sources, but he goes on strongly representing his side. So
Right, and
is he another person that we dismiss because he's on these left-standing side?
Scott Bannon or Steve Bannon?
Steve Bannon. I'm sorry, Steve Bannon. Yeah,
Listen, I don't think you have to dismiss him. I'm not saying to even dismiss that guy.
I know. I guess that's my
Steve
problem.
Bannon,
Is you have all these
listen to Steve Bannon. He wrote a book
powerhouses.
after he left the White House. That's like telling me to listen to Omarosa. Like I could have told you that was a bad idea in the beginning. But I'm not gonna say totally dismiss these guys, but I find it incredibly hard today, given the political climate and what the media has done, to actually take it with more than a grain of salt half the time, what people say, because one way or another, on both sides of it, they have a political agenda.
Absolutely.
And
just want to go on record agreeing 100% with
right.
that.
So we have to really look at things, from all angles. There's one thing I've ever thanked for college. It was giving me that perspective. Always look at things, and I implore everyone out there to do this. Look at things from all sides of it. Don't just take what you hear and run to the bank with it, because more than likely, 99% of the time, there is an angle and a reason they're doing it. Maybe you don't see it right now. Maybe you won't see it tomorrow. But I guarantee you, there is a reason, and it will come out. Look at historically all the times that something's happened, and then months or maybe even years later, they're like, "Oh, this is why he was doing it." So there's your angle.
So, just to give a shout out to my former professor from Esnuntuck, Bob Surikin. I don't know if you remember him. but he's a pretty influential guy for me. But either way, one of the things that he said to me a long time ago that stuck with me forever, you're talking like 2002, 2003, was figures lie and liars figure.
So on that note, I give one out to, out of all the professors, and everybody knows him as known, like Professor Boyd, ironically enough, who once talked about the media. And again, this is going back 2000, 2001-ish, way before any of this. Now, we weren't even close to the mess we're in today. But he said, in regards to the media, if it bleeds, it leads. And I swear to this day, I still remember that because it has only gotten truer as time has passed since he said that. It really is. I know Sean challenged me about a week ago to find, and publish or post 5 positive news articles. And I completed the 5th one today. But I got to say, it's not easy. I had to go to multiple news sources just to find something positive going on, which is other than sports, which is absurd. Like, I can go to 3 different news sources and not find one positive news article.
Yeah.
What's that say about our world right now?
Well, that's existed for a long time. Back in college, again, college reference, but I don't remember what class it was that I was in, but they told us to go ahead that night and turn on the nightly news and watch the news and count the amount of positive stories versus negative stories, and in the end, see what the tally was. And it was incredible. When I had done it, I believe that I came out with maybe 10% of that night's news was positive. And that's pretty depressing, actually.
I'm going to say that was Boyd's class because I remember a very similar
having to do that
assignment, and it was geared towards that. That was also when we talked about, and this might surprise some people here in Connecticut, the fact that, and I learned this by living in Florida for a short period, when you go around the country, it's not like Connecticut where the news is all over Connecticut. Most areas in this country are limited to their county. So you may not even realize what's going on outside of your county if you're in other states, bigger states, California, Florida, Texas, etc. And that holds true. That really did. When he said that, I didn't realize what the hell he was talking about. I'm like, what's this crazy guy talking about? But once we moved, I really quickly learned it, living in Charlotte County, Florida, that the news was really only geared towards Charlotte County, and it had to be pretty damn significant to be outside of Charlotte County. But that's just my personal world take on that, or national take on that.
So I think it's pretty safe to say, Brian and I both have very significant differing opinions as far as the Kavanaugh confirmation goes, and I can respect that. I'm not going to stop doing what I do. I'm going to continue working. I'm going to continue to be a proud American. I'm going to do me. And that's pretty much it. He was confirmed, and until there's a reason why he should be impeached, which I don't know if that's even a thing, then I guess it's time to move on.
It really is, and we need to heal. So this is my final statement on this podcast, but I think we need to move on, need to heal. Stop talking about these damn impeachment proceedings too, by the way. Like, how ridiculous are you? The guy wasn't even on the freaking sworn in yet, and you're like, oh, he's going to be impeached. First off, good luck with impeaching him because he has to commit a high crime or misdemeanor at the time he's serving in his capacity. And since you're saying you're going to impeach him before he's even had a chance to serve, that's pretty hard to do.
But I just got to interject real quick. Lying under oath is also possible grounds for impeachment. But
lying under oath absolutely is, but you'd have to prove that he lied under oath, and given the wealth of knowledge and facts that we don't have, good luck with that. So, anyway, Kavanaugh's on the Supreme Court. I'm glad for it. Sean's still on the fence. I think he'll make an excellent judge, and I think in the meantime, while we're signing off, I'm going to say, go out there, make your voice heard. Don't forget to vote in November. Vote for your conscience, with your conscience, rather. And remember, always have respectful and civil dialogue with, your opposition or whoever you're talking to. There's no reason to bring up personal attacks or get vicious, yell at people, name call, whatever. Just stop that and try to find a way to bring unity instead of division.
Civility. That's what it is. Civility. You know, if you want to check out some a good conversation on civility, check out Ben Shapiro and Bill Maher. You know, Ben Shapiro was brave enough to go on the Bill Maher show, and they had a very, I wouldn't say very, but they had a semi-heated discussion on civility on both sides. And, you know, in the end, it was very refreshing to see them kind of meet in the middle, considering Ben was kind of on Bill's home court. It's a little hard to meet in the middle, so you know that was a little difficult. But it was pretty refreshing to hear their conversation. You know, and so with that being said, I think this was a pretty first successful episode. We didn't get into a fist fight. You know,
Right.
we're not trying to kill each other. We didn't really name call each other. So I think these are all positives.
Right.
I think that I look forward to doing another one. You know, I'm hoping that the topics get a little less, you know, partisan-ish, you know, and more open to discussions regarding kind of what Brian was saying earlier about both sides and bringing them together, you know, trying to find some kind of unity through reason. So, yeah, thank you guys for listening.
Thank you. And we are off.